Emily Carter laughed softly, as Ryan Hale wrapped his arm around her waist, whispering, "You're mine. Remember that." It was supposed to sound romantic, possessive in a protective way, but something in his tone lingered like smoke. That night, her phone lit up every few minutes with his name, asking where she was, who she was with, when she'd be home. She thought it was sweet love wrapped in vigilance, but when she returned home to find Ryan waiting outside her apartment with that calm smile, claiming he just missed her, a shiver crawled up her spine. Still, Emily kissed him and ignored the unease pressing against her chest, because when someone says they love you that much, it's easier to call it devotion than control. The next morning, Ryan Hale texted before sunrise. "Good morning, beautiful. Did you sleep okay?" Emily Carter smiled half-heartedly at the screen. It felt nice, the attention, but exhausting too. At the office, his messages kept coming, each one a little more probing. "Who's at lunch with you? Why didn't you answer? You okay?" She brushed it off as care, even when her co-worker Lauren Price raised an eyebrow. "He's intense," Lauren said softly, eyes narrowing with concern. Emily laughed it off, telling her not to worry, but deep down, something about Ryan's constant presence felt less like love and more like surveillance. That night, Ryan Hale arrived at Emily Carter's apartment unannounced. "Surprise," he said, holding takeout and her favorite wine. It should have been romantic, but something in her stomach tightened. He asked about her day, then about Lauren, then why she hadn't answered his last 3 texts. His tone was gentle, but his eyes weren't. When Emily tried to laugh it off, Ryan smiled and said, "I just need to know you're safe." The words sounded tender, but the air felt heavy. Control, when wrapped in affection, hides easily behind a smile. Over dinner, Ryan Hale watched Emily Carter more than he listened. Every glance at her phone made his jaw tense. When she laughed at a message from Lauren Price, he reached for her hand, smiling tightly. "You know I just worry about you," he whispered. The air grew thick. Emily's appetite disappeared as she studied him, the perfect boyfriend who never really let her breathe. When he excused himself to the bathroom, she glanced at her phone. 12 unread messages, all from him, from earlier that day. For the first time, the pattern began to make sense. Later that night, Emily Carter lay in bed, phone screen glowing against the dark. Ryan Hale had texted goodnight twice, once sweet, once possessive. She turned the phone over, facing it down. Outside, rain began to fall softly against her window. But even as she closed her eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Somewhere between affection and fear, she realized love had started to feel like confinement. Days passed, and Ryan Hale's messages became routine, predictable, constant, almost comforting in their consistency. Emily Carter convinced herself it was just love expressed differently. But when he began calling during meetings and questioning her tone, the comfort faded. "I just need to know you're safe," he'd insist, his voice calm but deliberate. That line, once reassuring, now left her chest heavy. At work, Lauren Price caught Emily minimizing her phone screen. The light in her eyes dimmed. "This isn't normal." Lauren whispered. Emily smiled tightly, unwilling to admit how deep the control had already seeped. That weekend, Ryan Hale insisted they spend the entire day together. No distractions, no phone, just us. Emily Carter agreed, though a quiet dread shadowed her smile. He planned every hour. Breakfast, a drive to the lake, dinner at his apartment. The control was wrapped in tenderness, everything curated for her. Happiness. Yet beneath every gesture, she felt watched. When she stepped away to call Lauren Price, he appeared behind her without a sound. "Who are you talking to?" His voice was soft, but his eyes cut through her. It wasn't a question, it was a warning wrapped in love. That night, while Ryan Hale showered, Emily Carter glanced through his phone on the coffee table, something she'd never done before. Every instinct screamed not to, but curiosity won. Dozens of location logs filled his screen, timestamps, GPS coordinates, dates. She recognized every place she'd been for weeks. Her blood ran cold. When she heard the water stop, she locked the phone and sat perfectly still, pretending to scroll through hers. He stepped out, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You're everything I need." The words sounded tender, but in her mind they echoed as captivity. The next morning, Lauren Price met Emily Carter for coffee. Emily wore sunglasses despite the gray sky, an old trick to hide sleepless nights. "You're pulling away from everyone," Lauren said quietly. "You don't even sound like you anymore." Emily stirred her coffee until the spoon clinked against the cup. "He just loves me, Lauren. Maybe too much." Lauren's expression hardened. "That's not love, Anne. That's control." For a moment, Emily almost believed her. But when her phone buzzed again, Ryan's name flashing, she excused herself with a practiced smile and stepped outside to answer. That evening, Ryan Hale arrived at Emily Carter's apartment again, no warning, no reason. "I just wanted to see your face," he said, stepping inside before she could answer. His presence filled the room like fog. Emily tried to smile, but her body betrayed her tense shoulders. Shallow breath, hands clasped tightly in her lap. He studied her face, then her phone on the table. "You've been distant," he murmured. "Don't make me feel like I'm crazy for caring." When she apologized, he smiled, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Good girl." The phrase lingered long after he left, heavy, cold, and final. A week later, Emily Carter started noticing patterns, Ryan Hale appearing in places she hadn't mentioned visiting. At first, it was coincidence. The grocery store, the park, even outside her office. Fate, he called it with a smirk. But fate doesn't text you before you arrive somewhere. When she confronted him lightly, he laughed, brushing her cheek. "You post your life everywhere, Em." Maybe that's how I know, but her posts were private. As she drove home that evening, the street behind her reflected his car headlights for the third time that week. Coincidence had turned into fear, but fear was still easier to ignore than truth. At the office, Lauren Price noticed the shift in Emily Carter's demeanor, restless glances, trembling hands. When Emily finally confessed that Ryan Hale just happens to show up everywhere, Lauren's expression hardened. "He's tracking you somehow," she said flatly. Emily laughed nervously, dismissing it. He wouldn't do that. But deep inside, a voice whispered otherwise. Lauren leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You need to take this seriously, Em. You're not paranoid, you're being watched." The words settled heavy between them, filling the air with dread neither wanted to name aloud. That night, Emily Carter turned off location services, powered down her phone, and went for a walk, desperate for silence. But the silence followed her. A faint hum of an engine trailed in the distance. Every step quickened her pulse. When she stopped, so did it. Her heart pounded as she ducked into a side street, pressing against a brick wall, breath visible in the cold. A black SUV rolled past slowly. Headlights dim. She caught a glimpse of the driver, Ryan Hale, his expression calm, unreadable. He didn't see her, but she knew now. This wasn't jealousy. It was surveillance disguised as love. The next morning, Emily Carter couldn't focus. She jumped at every sound, every passing car. Lauren Price met her in the parking lot before work, eyes scanning Emily's face. "You need help," Lauren said. "This is beyond love." Emily nodded slowly, but her voice trembled. "What if I'm overreacting? What if he's just worried?" Lauren stepped closer. "Men who love don't need to track you, Em." The truth in her tone left no room for argument. For the first time, Emily felt the word afraid crawl up her throat, and this time, she didn't push it down. That evening, Emily Carter parked outside her apartment and sat in silence, staring at her steering wheel. She replayed every moment, his sudden appearances, his knowing tone, The text that came seconds after she arrived somewhere. Her pulse quickened. She opened her door and crouched beside the car, running her hand along the undercarriage like Lauren Price had suggested. Her fingers brushed against something cold, metallic, magnetic. She froze. A small black box, no bigger than a matchbook, clung beneath the passenger side. Her breath hitched, fear solidifying into realization. He wasn't jealous. He was tracking her. The discovery wouldn't leave Emily Carter's mind. She barely slept. When Ryan Hale called the next morning, his voice sounded lighter than ever, oblivious to the storm clawing inside her. She forced normalcy, telling him she was just tired. He suggested picking her up for lunch. The word no hovered on her tongue but never escaped. Hours later, his car appeared outside her building right on time, as if he'd known her schedule by heart. As she slid into the passenger seat, the familiar scent of his cologne made her stomach twist. Every smile, every touch, now carried the weight of what she'd found beneath her car. Lunch unfolded like a performance. Ryan Hale laughed, asked questions, brushed crumbs from Emily Carter's sleeve, but his gaze never softened. "Why were you out so late last night?" he asked casually, stirring his coffee. Emily froze. She hadn't mentioned leaving her apartment. He smiled, noticing her reaction. "Babe, I just worry." Her hands trembled beneath the table. She wanted to scream, "How did you know?" Yet fear sealed her lips. Control, she realized, didn't always need raised voice. It only needed certainty that you'd stay quiet. That evening, Emily Carter called Lauren Price, voice shaking. "He knows everything. Lauren, where I go when I'm home." Lauren's tone was sharp with alarm. This isn't love. You need to get that thing removed." But Emily hesitated. Part of her still clung to the illusion of safety he provided. Ryan Hale had convinced her the world was dangerous, that only he could keep her from harm. It was the perfect trap fear disguised as protection. For the first time, she said it aloud. "I think he's watching me." The words made it real. When Ryan Hale showed up at her door later, Emily Carter nearly dropped the phone from her hand. He smiled as if summoned by thought. "I was nearby," he said softly. "I wanted to make sure you're safe." She stared at him, knowing the irony but unable to speak it. He stepped inside without asking, brushing a hand down her arm. "Someone could hurt you out there," he murmured. "I need you to trust me." Every word carried two meanings: the protector and the predator in the same breath. Her silence was the permission he needed to stay. After he left, Emily Carter locked every door and sat on the floor, back against the wall. Her pulse echoed in her ears. She opened her messages, 20 unread texts from Ryan Hale, each a mix of affection and threat. "You're quiet tonight. Are you okay? Why aren't you answering? Do you still love me?" Tears blurred her vision. She realized love should need proof of obedience. Her fear hardened into resolve. Tomorrow, she'd find help, remove the device, take her freedom back if she could do it before he noticed. The next morning, Emily Carter woke before sunrise. She hadn't slept and watched the window for headlights that never came. When she finally reached for her phone, 3 new messages from Ryan Hale waited. "You awake? Then call me. Then I love you more than anything." The words felt colder now, mechanical. Her hands shook as she dialed Daniel Brooks, an old friend she hadn't spoken to in months. "I need your help," she whispered. "It's about my car." The silence on the line lasted a beat too long before Daniel replied, "Bring it to the shop. Don't tell anyone where you're going." The auto shop smelled of oil and rain-soaked concrete. Daniel Brooks greeted Emily Carter with a tight nod, wiping his hands on a rag. "You said you think there's something under the car?" he asked quietly. She nodded, voice barely audible. "I just need to know," as he crouched down with a flashlight. The silence stretched. Emily's heart hammered in her throat. The sound of metal tapping echoed faintly, followed by his low curse. When Daniel looked up, his face was pale. "Emily," he said slowly, holding up a small black box. "You weren't imagining it." Emily Carter stared at the device trembling in Daniel Brooks' hand. The object was small, almost harmless looking, but her entire world cracked open inside it. "That's how he knew," she whispered. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Emily, you need to go to the police." But she hesitated. Fear of what Ryan Hale might do if he found out pulsed through her veins. "Hell no, I found it," she murmured. Daniel's expression softened, concern breaking through his anger. "Then we'll be smart about it," he said. "He won't see you coming." Driving home, Emily Carter felt the air around her change. Every turn, every passing car seemed suspicious. She imagined Ryan Hale behind every pair of headlights, every reflection in the window. She clutched the steering wheel tighter, whispering to herself, "It's over. It has to be over." But when her phone buzzed in the passenger seat, her stomach twisted. "Ryan, I missed you today. Everything okay with the car?" The words drained the color from her face. He knew. Somehow, he already knew. By the time Emily Carter reached home, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She parked, locked the doors, and sat in silence, the weight of realization pressing against her ribs. Her reflection in the window barely looked like her anymore, tired, haunted, aware. The tracker lay on the seat beside her, mute and damning. She finally saw the pattern. The late-night texts, the surprise visits, the perfect timing. Every moment had been orchestrated. Love hadn't been protection, it had been surveillance. And the worst part wasn't what Ryan Hale had done. It was how easily she had called it love. Emily Carter didn't sleep that night. The tracker sat on her kitchen counter like a confession made of metal. Each time her phone buzzed, she flinched. Ryan Hale had texted again. "You're quiet lately. Did I do something wrong?" The words read soft, but she heard the demand behind them. By sunrise, fear had turned into something sharper resolve. She called Lauren Price and told her everything. There was silence, then Lauren's voice, low and steady. "You're not crazy, Em. You're in danger. We'll fix this." For the first time, Emily believed her. At Lauren Price's insistence, Emily Carter drove to Daniel Brooks' shop again. The tracker, sealed in a plastic bag, sat on the passenger seat. "Well, hand it to the police tomorrow," Daniel said, though his tone betrayed doubt. "You sure you're safe tonight?" She nodded, forcing calm she didn't feel. Daniel glanced toward the door, uneasy. "If he shows up, call me." She managed a thin smile. "I won't need to." But as she left, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror, wide eyes, trembling lips, the look of someone preparing for war. That evening, Ryan Hale called. "You've been distant," he said softly. "I can feel it." Emily Carter kept her voice steady. "I'm just tired, Ryan." Silence stretched. Then his tone shifted colder. "You'd tell me if someone was turning you against me, right?" She swallowed hard, eyes darting toward the bagged tracker on the counter. "Of course." The lie left her mouth like glass. He exhaled, relieved. Good. I'd hate to think anyone was interfering with us." When the call ended, Emily's hands were shaking so badly she dropped her phone. Lauren Price arrived just after sunset, armed with calm determination. "We're ending this tonight," she said. Emily Carter hesitated, part of her still bound by old guilt. "What if he comes here?" Lauren's gaze didn't waver. "Then he'll see what strength looks like." They planned every step: report, evidence, confrontation if needed. For the first time, Emily's fear turned into purpose. "He doesn't own me," she whispered, more to herself than to Lauren. The words felt foreign at first, then powerful. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon like an omen. The storm deepened, Rain lashed against the glass as Emily Carter rehearsed what she'd say if Ryan Hale showed up. Her heart raced with every thunderclap. When her phone buzzed, she froze his name glowing again. "I'm outside." She turned to Lauren Price, panic breaking through her composure. "He's here." Lauren grabbed her hand. "Then this ends now." Together, they walked toward the door. Emily's reflection passed through the window, a woman who'd once mistaken control for love, now standing on the edge of reclaiming her life. The knock came soft at first, then heavier, controlled, deliberate. Ryan Hale stood on the porch, rain soaking his coat, eyes fixed on Emily Carter through the glass. "Open the door, Em," he said, voice low, too calm. Lauren Price whispered, "Don't." But Emily stepped closer anyway, something inside her snapping. "You tracked me," she said through the door. "You lied to me." His smile faltered. "I protected you," he hissed, "from everyone." The illusion shattered. Love had turned into surveillance. Devotion had become control. She reached for her phone, this time not to text him, but to call the police. Ryan Hale slammed his hand against the door. "You think they'll believe you?" he shouted. Lauren Price grabbed Emily Carter's wrist, pulling her back. "He's losing control," she whispered. Ryan's voice dropped to a chilling calm. "You can't leave me, Em. No woman loves you like I do." The words, once intoxicating, now sounded like a curse. Police sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Someone had called faster than she thought. For a split second, his expression cracked, revealing fear beneath the rage. Control slipping away, the one thing he couldn't stand to lose. The police sirens grew louder, their light flickering across the drenched windows. Ryan Hale stepped back, eyes darting toward the sound. "You did this to us," he muttered. Emily Carter stood trembling, her fear transforming into something steadier defiance. "No, Ryan," she said. "You did this to yourself." For a moment, neither moved. The storm screamed around them, thunder rolling like judgment. When the flashing lights painted his face red and blue, he finally turned and ran into the night. The silence that followed was almost unbearable, the kind that comes after survival. The officers took Emily Carter's statement while Lauren Price sat nearby, hand resting on hers. Every word felt heavier than the last, recounting the texts, the unannounced visits, the tracker. "You did the right thing," one officer said, his voice steady. But as the night quieted and the storm eased, Emily's relief mixed with grief. Part of her still mourned the man she thought she loved, the illusion she'd built around his chaos. Lauren squeezed her hand gently. "He doesn't get to own your story." Emily nodded. For the first time in months, the air felt breathable. Later that morning, Emily Carter stood alone in her driveway, the air still damp, quiet except for distant birds. In her palm lay the tracker, small, black, harmless looking, yet powerful enough to rewrite her life. She crouched, placed it on the ground, and crushed it beneath her heel. The click echoed like a release. When she straightened, sunlight broke through the clouds, catching her face. For the first time, she didn't look over her shoulder. She just breathed deeply, freely, painfully alive. Love hadn't saved her. Courage had.